tonight.
May I sit on your chair?
Yes, please.
Atheists. Has anyone encountered an atheist before?
Has anyone been with me?
You guys even care what I'm talking about right now? I'm talking to you guys. Have any of you
Right, we are hanging on
hanging on every word?
every word.
Dated an atheist. Jill. Jill dated me. So there's hope. for us
So what do you
atheists.
guys think about that chapter? Yes.
I thought this was fascinating, and I told my sister about it on Saturday. That in history, all the powerful groups had been religion group, the church. The church had been groups of power. So it wasn't until the Soviet Union and Stalin that an atheist group, large group, had that kind of power. So that really blew a lot out of the water.
Mhm.
A lot of their arguments that having faith in God causes war,
Right.
Christians are murderers, blah, 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 the Bible's filled with, hello. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fascism and communism are just opposite sides of the same coin. Yeah.
I thought there was something funny in page 33. It said, as I noticed while researching my book, The Twilight of Atheism, a large number of people come to believe in God in later life when they are growing up. I have yet to meet anyone who came to believe in Santa Claus,
Yeah.
the Tooth Fairy,
Yeah.
or Lady Luck.
I put up my
Yeah.
There's certain things I underline, and then next to it I put asterisks when it's like, okay,
Yes.
that's like, it's like a double underline.
Oh my gosh, I believe in the
I
Easter
loved
Bunny.
his arguments with Dawkins because I remember in college we would go, we actually had a debate and there was like 400 some 600
Oh,
people.
wow.
And it was the guy that wrote Darwinism on Trial, Philip Johnson.
Mhm.
He came and spoke, and so all of the physicists got up, and all the physics professors and got up, and they all had their getting the Jesus fish, the Darwin fish and getting the Jesus fish shirts on and all that stuff, and it was really funny, but they would all quote Dawkins, and this guy would just take the Philip Johnson would just take the wind right out of their sails because he would just answer them really succinctly, very much like what he was saying, and they'd be like, what? And it was hilarious just watching. But I've heard Dawkins quoted so often in various philosophy classes and stuff that it was really funny to see him just take him to task. I was like, yes. Not that I'm, upset at all, but yes.
I like on 35, it says they want to argue that the sciences disprove God, and yet they find themselves unable to justify this by argument, by experiment, or even by an appeal to the scientific community as a whole. Reminds us that atheism itself is a belief system, a set of ideas that cannot actually be proved.
Exactly. Yeah. Can't prove or disprove.
Something I got was on page 22, and it says my doubts about the intellectual foundations of atheism began to coalesce into the realization that atheism was actually a belief system, whereas I had assumed it to be a factual statement about reality.
I liked where he said, I have found that one of the best ways of defending Christianity is simply to explain what it actually is.
It's beautiful. I can just sleep on that all day. That's good.
Well, and it's just this idea that religion is one thing, Christianity is something else. And I think a lot of people, a lot of us have had bad experiences with religion.
Yeah.
We
that can turn us off and can even turn people to the point of saying they're atheists or agnostics, but they're really just hurt.
Yeah, a lot of them are just, yeah.
In many
A lot of the ones I've met are hurt
In many
because God hasn't
cases.
answered their prayers or the reality didn't look like,
It's kind of, well, I'm just gonna.
yeah, like they wanted it to, the outcome wasn't that the way they wanted it to be, and so they thought, well, I guess there isn't a God.
Yeah.
I would just, we like to say that a lot. We're not a religion, it's a relationship.
Mhm.
But, that sounds sometimes trite to people and like, they don't really,
Understand.
they don't understand what that
They
means.
don't know what to do.
And besides, God does say that He likes pure and unadulterated religion.
Yeah.
So,
The good, not the bad.
right, the good, not the bad. So it's, again, like, we all have religion. Is it just good or bad? Like,
We all know what we do.
right?
What is it,
And so, it helps us to understand, we're not it's a relationship. It helps us to, Os Guinness says that contrast is the mother of clarity. So when you contrast two worldviews or you contrast things, it helps you to bring clarity and understand. So it helps us to understand, yeah, this is about our relationship. So to us, that means we're not just following these dogmas, but we're actually in a relationship with God. So we understand that. But to just say, quote it to somebody, it just sounds very trite. And so I just, and in fact, I've heard when I've heard Robbie and some of them answer, they talk about the religion of Christianity,
Mhm.
in its proper understanding. Like, this is what it means, this is what this is. So they're not really,
Not judgment and backbiting.
they're not,
but
they're not arguing like,
Yeah.
well, we're not, because it just has gotten this like,
Well, it just feels postmodern.
yeah,
It's a relationship.
yeah,
That feels cozy, and
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah,
It's really
Cozy
easy
and
to
like,
say that.
yeah,
yeah, politically
I'm
correct
guilty.
and-
yeah,
I know, yeah, we all are,
Yeah.
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 But it
Me
does come
too.
back to definitions.
Yeah.
Jen said, we have to define what that
We
means.
will have to define
because
what it means.
that sure means different things to different people.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it seems like there is a blanket, like on Christianity, that, it's just like used, like covers a very wide group of people so maybe when we say I'm not, or I'm Christian doesn't mean the same to me as it might to somebody else.
Yeah.
So like with the new age of atheism and stuff, I kind of been reading the book, I don't know that I really saw, well, atheism means something different to this person than to that person, I think maybe Christianity is maybe kind of unique in that way.
More thoughts?
I find atheism, in the past have said that it's a stubborn religion, because it's just, in my standpoint, it's just stubbornness. Like it was easy for me to be like against everything, and people find comfort in being stubborn sometimes.
Yeah.
And Jill can tell you, sometimes I'll just be stubborn just to be stubborn. So it's
Fill your paper.
so when you come across someone that's atheist, there's you'll probably it's a smoke screen in a lot of ways. You have to break through that stubbornness that they're stuck in a lot of times. Not every time, but a lot of times you'll find that.
I was listening to Ravi Zacharias on the radio not too long ago, and he was talking about a conversation he was having in regard to how they were saying, like, well, look at how many people have been killed in the name of religion. And then he countered that with, well, look at how many people have been killed in the name of atheism, like regarding Stalin. I don't know if that was in the chapter or not.
Yeah.
But regarding Stalin and stuff like that, and countless more, like so many more people have been killed in the name of atheism or against religion, keeping religion out.
I loved the quote by this, I'm totally gonna butcher his name, Sislamilos.
Sure. Let's go with that.
Or it says religion opium for the people. To those suffering pain, humiliation, illness, and serfdom, it promised a reward in an afterlife. But now we are witnessing a transformation. A true opium of the people is a belief in nothingness after death. The huge solace of thinking that for our betrayals, greed, cowardice, and murders we are not going to be judged. The Marxist creed has now been inverted. The true opium of modernity is the belief that there is no God, so that humans are free to do precisely as they please.
I had started that one also when I was going
Yeah,
to work on next. It's pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What page was that?
that's 32. Yeah, I like the way you said that.
That's good.
So, yeah, we
Um,
don't have to be accountable for anything, right?
You know, it's been interesting because like last week I was just talking out loud to Ref and we were talking about like how you see sometimes like the elite few who pretty much run the US and the world and how they are unaccountable for their actions when they do bad things and how they can not go to jail and they get, you know, the whole buyout for when the whole market fell and
It's
everything.
basically like communism for the elite, because the government embraced it.
Like socialism.
Socialism for the elite, because the government embraced it. The problems, when it comes down to
Capitalism for everybody else.
capitalism for everybody.
Yeah, so we have like rules to govern ourselves, and if we do something wrong, we get punished. But the top few don't go by the same rules. They make the rules to make sure everybody else is at a safe enough distance to where they can still stay on top.
Right.
But and I was just thinking about horrible people who are doing these things. There was some interview I was reading. This guy, he does something in oil anyway, causing some bombs and some wars, and he knew it. And it was in Africa, and a reporter was asking him, like, did you know the business that you're pursuing, you know, last week it killed like 25,000 people in Africa in this small community. And the man was just kind of like listening, smiling, but not responding to anything just because he knew, but you get dull to it. And the man was like, do you have anything to say to that? And he was just like, are we done? Nice to see you. He was like, he's so charming and nice, but he doesn't ever have to see all that. He just sees the numbers, he sees the income and the wealth, and he's far from that, far from the real world. And so it just makes me so angry, but I said, you know, the interesting thing is all those people died, but if he's just going on the sheer thought that he will never die, then there's no punishment. But clearly everybody dies, as we see anyway. So at some point he will die. So it's just like, so what gives you the right to determine when other people die? You know, he's acting as a god in a sense, whether or not he believes in God or not. But when they're both dead and both see God, like, I would not want to be that man, you know, who killed all those people for some money just to stay in power. When your power dies, we're losing. You know?
What else, guys? What else that you guys underline? What stood out to you for?
I liked below what Jen read, that just because I want something to be true, it cannot be. Yeah.
Right.
So it's just interesting to read as we read each of these chapters because, you know, some of the arguments, most of the arguments, when you're able to think about them, really fall apart.
Yeah.
But in the moment, especially like me, I mean, in the moment, my brain would just be like, ah.
Well, that's
Good
why it's
point.
good to get this
Yeah.
really in,
Exactly.
you know, and really do study and
Mhm.
get it into your bones. I mean, like you said, just because we want it doesn't make it true. And then that line that says, imagine the man who longs for a drink of water on a long, hot, dusty day. Does water not exist because he wants
Because
it?
he wants it, right?
You know?
So we want to believe in a God, does that mean there isn't a God?
Right.
No.
Right,
One of-
right. And
they want to not believe in God.
Exactly. Does that
Still
mean
a
there isn't one? No.
It's still a belief,
That's
and they,
what
you know, you
I'm
should talk about belief systems, but it is a belief system, you know?
What about people invent their religious ideas to suit their longings and aspirations? And then, let's see, it is not simply Christianity, but also atheism that can be regarded as a projection of human hopes.
You know, I would encourage you too, if you have friends or family that are atheists, reread the chapter and or any of these chapters where you like I'm already like knowing people in chapter 8 that you know that we're reading. I know people, you know. And so it's like I wanna read it and then I wanna reread it and then I wanna, you know, write all my underlines on a separate piece of paper and then write my responses for those underlines and do the research. And I think that's just one of the ways of really studying and getting it into you so that it's there. And so like I said, you know, when you're up against that, it's just very natural and we're learning the tools anyway, you know, to really listen to their heart and take the time to do that, not just to come at them, but also have our thoughts and be able to, you know, to give an account as well. So I think it's a process, and I know because we're in this class that we're studying this and we've got, you know, we read this in an hour and then we're talking about it in 10 minutes and then, you know what I mean? It's not there yet. It's not there yet, but it will be if you go after it. It will be.
Honestly, what I found too is when I was in college, because I studied a lot of this stuff when I was in high school, and so you know it at a mental level. But when you get into college, you find people that are actively arguing, and then they will shove it down your throat if you give them half of a chance in your open mouth. And what I found was the biggest point of where you could actually interact with them was one-on-one when I got over the fact that I'm like, oh, but when I got over the fact that it wasn't me against them, but realizing that, you know what, and I actually began to see the places that was interacting with them and it was hurting them. And so when I developed compassion for them is when I could actually hear them. And then when they realized I was actually hearing them, they would actually listen to what I was saying. And so that compassion is
I
really
think
the
it's
operable.
huge. It's huge, and that's why the exercise that you're giving us this week of actually asking someone and not even thinking about giving them the answers yet, just asking them and listening to them. It's going to be very interesting, I think, what you find. And it reminds me of when your sister was Mormon, and Brett was asking her questions. I mean, she was Mormon because the Mormons had helped her, and they were there, right? And so she needed help, and they helped her, and then they talked with her, and eventually she became Mormon. But Bray would ask her different questions. She had no idea what she believed. She couldn't answer any of the questions, which is interesting. So I wonder how many of your, you know, the people you talk to actually will be able to answer their questions. And maybe in the fact that they can't answer the questions will cause them to think deeper about the questions. But anyway, I think that exercise is going to be great.
I had to do that exercise when I took the class with Robbie, and it was really interesting. The first I had to do it a couple times, and the first time that I did it, I was actually getting a haircut, and the man who cut my hair before I met Katie.
That's a good place to do it because you have their undivided attention. Really, they
Well,
can't go.
It was interesting because I kept like, I mean, I've been going to him for a while, so we had a relationship, you know. And I was just, how do I get this going? Because it's not like a random stranger that you might just go up and go, hey, you know, somebody I knew and I didn't want to offend, and I didn't know, but I knew that he knew that I was a pastor at a church, and we talked about some things before, and I could tell that there was something in his background. I was like, but I knew it wasn't quite Christian, but I was like, what is this? And then it was so funny because he just started the conversation and I didn't even have to ask him. And then we just, and he was a Mormon. And I just started, so I'm like, so how does that work? And then he would explain, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And then we just talked about it. And because he knew I was a pastor, there was like a bridge that was being built because actually by the end, he felt like, because I never, challenged, that was not part of the assignment, I was just kind of listening and yeah, and then he would say something that's similar to Christianity and we would both laugh about it, I'm like, yeah, that's so true, that happens in my church too, and then, oh. And so it's just like, but there was, huh?
People falling down.
Yeah, we were related.
Did it have fire tunnels? Literal fire there.
Yeah, and so by the end it was like, I could tell he was a lot more relaxed than he had ever been. Because I think before knowing that I was a pastor, there was a little bit of a wall because he knew he was Mormon, even though I didn't know.
Yeah.
And he always had a little bit of a reserve, and afterwards he just kind of relaxed.
Yeah.
And like he wasn't feeling judged or, he was just.
That's beautiful.
So.
And then you fired him and went to Katie. So now he's like, did I say something?
I'll convert, I really will, I promise.
Yeah, you have to pop your head in sometimes. Hey, I've been thinking about
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a different, present day, but
Yeah.
you're doing good. He'll love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
know,
totally should do
yeah.
I needed a girl to cut my hair.
It's just part of the Christian faith.
Oh, gosh.
I repented.
I just want to bring up that one of the things that I liked about what he talked about was the fact that science is not adept at dealing with the big questions of life.
Yeah.
And that was a big point for me when I was studying this, because that's what atheist claims, is that science can answer ultimate reality. And understanding that science is statements about nature, we're studying nature, but it can't answer where it came from because they don't know, right? And so we are back in the same place, like, so you're wanting to tell me this is ultimate reality, but you don't really know all of this that you're studying, where does it come from? It's all in theory still, it's all the theory of evolution, the theory of the Big Bang, the theory, that's not a fact. When you were talking earlier about the names that they give, I've been studying quantum physics, they give names because they don't know what it is. They don't know how to explain it, so they give it names like non-local.
Right.
They don't know what that means. They just know it's not from here. Right? So
Comes up with this.
Not local.
no, but because you're studying it in the gist of science, it's like, oh, non-local, or
Sounds cool.
it sounds like, yeah, oh yeah. Well, let me tell you about the theory of, the non-local quantum. And it's like, they just made up a name because they don't know. They don't know what it is. So, but they have to give it a name to create a language to study it. But they've done that with a lot of things. They really don't know. So, I find that.
Well, and like in the chapter that was on science, I guess in part I can see how maybe they think, science disproves, God, doesn't disprove God, but kind of leans maybe toward that. But like in the chapter on science, which we've already talked about, I mean, they make huge points that the window is minute of how the universes needed to end up, for them to function. The size of the stars, the kind of universe that can have large stars and small stars, It's such a narrow window. And like you say, the Big Bang. Oh, so there was a Big Bang. A zillion different kinds of things were created. Planets started rotating in order after being created by a Big Bang, and it's never happened again. Nothing even remotely similar has ever happened again. In fact, in most ways, everything is dying. But at this one moment, there was just this huge bang of creation. Never seen anything like it since. I mean, see, I don't know. I just don't even understand how
Anybody
they
thought
think
these-
science even has, I think science proves God and not even to mention the whole quantum physics
Yeah.
thing, which,
If explosions,
yeah. You were looking.
Hiding behind these particles.
honestly, if explosions created something, every time we'd have an atomic bomb go up, a new city would be there.
Exactly.
Instead of apart,
Exactly.
you know.
Well, yeah, the argument would be there about the soup, the primordial soup is not present.
Yeah.
That's true.
Where did primordial soup come
If
from?
that, if that, if
Right,
that,
right,
if
I'm
that
just,
worked,
yeah,
I'm
if
just
that-
trying to think.
yeah.
if that worked, Hiroshima has enough soup.
What if the Big Bang actually was something they discovered, what if that's what happened when God created the earth? What is the Big Bang?
Right.
Well, okay, so here's the thing about the Big Bang Theory. It actually, a lot of scientists were not wanting the Big Bang Theory to come forth because it actually created, it means that the universe was it had an origin, had a beginning.
Yeah.
And so a lot of scientists, when the theory of the Big Bang was being proposed, they were adamant against it because they were saying, well, that's just gonna give creationists a hand up because that means the universe has an origin. Whereas they used to believe the universe was eternal, that it had always existed. So the Big Bang actually brought into science the thought that there's an origin
Right.
to the universe. So there are some creation scientists who believe in the Big Bang because they believe in intelligent design as the ultimate reality, there's an intelligent designer who is God. But they're not opposed to the fear of the Big Bang as being a part of the process of creation.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, and probably didn't make clear, is that would happen with no intelligent
Right.
designer.
Right.
It would have, how could it have happened on its own? But yeah, I've heard too, and certainly can agree that when God was creating, there was probably a lot
Yeah.
of noise, a lot of banging, Psalm 33 that we looked at a little bit today says the, star-breathing God.
Yeah.
So if stars are coming out of his breath, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But to have it happen kind of like accidentally or
Right,
without,
right.
Yeah.
without
Chance.
a being that
Chance
was
plus matter
intentional
plus time
or
is what they
planned.
say. Chance plus matter plus time.
Yeah,
That was totally
yeah.
Well, now
There's too
that
much
matter
order
is being
now.
disproved, they don't have it.
Yeah, let's talk
Anyway.
more about matter being disproved.
But
I know what really matters.
Hawking.
Does matter matter?
Did you see the theory of everything?
No, but here's the thing, so Hawkins,
Just watched that.
okay. Now his theory is that they have come up with a theory of everything that they're trying to prove, which will explain everything.
Oh, I thought he never came up with that.
No,
But he's still trying to.
no, they're still trying, it's a theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a theory.
It's a movie.
More like,
It's a movie, exactly.
About the theory.
He originally proved that there was an origin, and then later he disproved his own theory.
I think he's just been dealing in theory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, definitely theory, yeah.
So
How his childhood was.
I feel sorry for him.
Hawkings,
Stephen
Hawkins.
Hawkins.
he's the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, he's
he's
incredibly
incredibly
intelligent.
brilliant,
Very smart.
and incredibly tragic.
Scientist.
Is he an atheist guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Very.
Very much.
Hawkins and Dawkins.
His brother
came out And his wife was a Catholic, she believed.
I haven't seen
God.
the movie, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And his brother is a Christian, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is his brother, Denny Hawking?
I don't.
Sure.
No.
I've heard of it as Denny Hawking.
Yeah.
They mention him in
A
the movie.
sports person?
No, like a radio, teacher or something.
Interesting thing about Hawkins though, see, they gave him 2 years to live, And he was in his in the early 20s, and he is 73 now.
Wow.
And
I've always
so
felt like he's gonna
it
get
doesn't
saved.
make God.
You're
Yeah.
I've always felt like Hawkins is gonna get
How
saved.
do you think you're still alive?
I don't know about that.
Well, in
I'm just kidding.
in quantum physics, what can we do to influence that, right? Cause you know,
What
cause
do you
we're
mean?
not, you know, there aren't the limits of space and time that we all maybe think, so can't we influence matter or something?
Time trouble.
Yeah, this whole thing
Get some
about time,
particles waving
Whoa.
toward him?
time doesn't
I'm gonna call my
exist,
TARDIS.
just to let you know.
I'm just gonna call my TARDIS. Even for us, time doesn't exist?
None of this exists.
Oh.
We live in the dimension of space and time,
Yes.
unfortunately. But another aspect of it is quantum tunneling. That's another fun one. Quantum tunneling. So a particle, okay, they put two particles, they set them in motion, and they put a barrier on one. And they thought that it would slow that one down because it would take it a long time to get through if it got through at all. Well, it actually went faster. It skipped the barrier altogether.
That's interesting. These are these little,
The particles,
are
yeah,
they like,
subatomic particles.
So you put a block, or you put an obstacle in front of it
And it actually
and it
was faster.
accelerated.
And yes, because it just skipped it.
That's interesting.
so we need to get a
Sounds
hold of that,
prophetic
why don't
right
we
there.
just skip obstacles?
Doesn't it? All right, so is it small group time? Is that what's next?
If you want,
It's-
it's 9 o'clock, so if you wanna do teaching and then.
And then
some
small
more
group?
Teaching and then small group and.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna read you something else that's really interesting from this book. So the other day when we were doing worship at the One, this was before I was reading this part of the book. We're doing worship at the One, and we're in prophetic worship, and I started singing with unveiled faces, with unveiled faces, with unveiled faces. And then Adrian started singing outside of time and into time, outside of time and into time. And I'm like, then I started reading this. So he says, the multiverse is a hypothetical set of possible universes that exist alongside one another in different dimensions, of which are physical universes, but one of a series of parallel worlds. So this is called M theory. This is one of the theories that they have, that there are multiple universes at the same time existing.
Multiple realities, like Matrix.
Yes, okay? It's a theory, this is not a part, like the other ones that I'm telling you about are proven experiments. This is a theory, M theory. This is what they're as they're trying to explain quantum realities that they're observing, M theory is one of the ones that they're coming up with. And they say that there are 11 dimensions.
Why 11? I'm sorry.
I don't know why 11, but that's the ones that they,
It's just what they found so far.
yeah.
Double one.
Huh? The double one, well, okay.
No, it's a double one.
Oh, a double one?
Double one.
Yeah, double one, yeah. I am not an advocate of the many worlds interpretation because I believe in just two worlds, the world of spirit and the world of matter. But I wanted to make the point that the idea of parallel universes, or merely the idea of another universe alongside our own, is not an idea that is on the fringe of contemporary scientific thought. Many well-known scientists who have become popular authors subscribe to this view and actively promote it as a solution to the quantum paradox. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." The writer to the Hebrews indicates that Christ is the one through whom God made the worlds. Note that the term worlds is plural, not singular. We see this same term in a later chapter of Hebrews. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. I'm sorry, but that's a quantum statement right there. The things that are seen are made of the things that are not visible, non-local quantum particle realities. There are two worlds revealed in the Bible. Jesus frequently talked about this world and the world above. He said to those who opposed him, "You are from beneath, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world." On another occasion he said, "I come forth from the Father and have come into the world. Again, I have the world and go to the Father." Jesus clearly revealed there are two worlds. There is this material world and there is another world that is above and beyond this physical universe because it exists in another spiritual dimension. So, understanding these concepts within the thought of scientific thought brings it to a different place in your mind. Because sometimes I believe that as Christians we operate with almost like a magical understanding of the supernatural. Because we believe it's there, but we don't understand, so we're just like, it just feels like magical, like it's just magical, right? But understanding it within the concept of the scientific discoveries that are being made and thinking through these things puts it in a different understanding that no, it is an actual other dimension that is parallel to ours, which is not a crazy scientific thought. Prominent physicists believe in parallel dimensions that exist.
It's nice of them to come on board.
Exactly, it's very nice of them to agree with us. These two worlds are separated by a gossamer thin veil. They are continuously intersecting, yet they are two entirely separate worlds. This is how I described when one of my really good friends died, and I was in my room, and it's like it's the craziest experience that I've had, because it's like the veil became so thin, I could feel heaven, and I could, witnesses were there in the room, and it was so crazy because I'm like, the veil was gone, or just barely thin. But here's what I want. Here's the exciting part. Okay. One is the world constituted by matter, and the other is constituted by spirit. When Jesus walked upon the earth, he displayed the supernatural powers of the world above, which is identified as heaven. Even when he was upon earth, and I don't know if he talks about it here, but he says that above does not mean geographically, but transcendent. So above in transcendence. He said, "No one has ascended to heaven but he who came down from heaven, that is the Son of Man who is in heaven. The heavenly man, Jesus Christ, displayed heaven on earth and revealed the kingdom of heaven everywhere he walked on earth." The Bible talks about a veil that separates heaven and earth. The book of Hebrews talks about entering the presence behind the veil. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record that the exact moment that Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the temple was torn from top to bottom, prophetically symbolizing that through the atonement of Christ, the way had been made for humanity to pass through the veil into the supernatural world called heaven. Elsewhere in the New Testament, we encounter another interesting concept that appears to communicate a similar idea to the veil. Paul talked about a mirror or a looking glass. Remember Alice's looking glass? He said, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face." Paul picked up, so these are just concepts that I'm throwing out there because we talked about how Alice's looking glass, how Alice in Wonderland is a depiction of postmodern thinking. So, but God talks about a mirror or a looking glass. "For we now see through a glass darkly, but then face to face." Paul picked up this idea again in his second epistle to the Corinthians, where he deliberately dovetailed the twin concepts of the looking glass and the veil. He taught that whenever someone turns to Christ, the veil is taken away. He then proceeded to teach that those who have turned to Christ are now able to peer through the looking glass into heaven in order to behold the glory of God. But we all, with unveiled face, behold, as in a glass, the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. The obvious suggestion is that God is on the other side of the veil. He is on the other side of the looking glass, peering into this world. We are in this material world, but through Christ we can now peer through the looking glass into heaven.
Sweet.
And what were you singing it was?
With unveiled faces.
Faces.
Out of time into time. So it's just, to me it's really exciting when science catches up. Because we begin, it's like, I've heard people in Christianity say, quote the verse of knowledge will increase, almost like a negative thing, as if, that's gonna be terrible because it's gonna confuse people. I don't know what the thought is behind that, but it's almost like knowledge will increase and it's just this terrible thing that will happen. But to me, it's like, as people as science is discovering these things about creation reveals the glory of God.
Right.
And so when we begin to understand creation through biblical revelation, and we begin to understand how the glory of God is being displayed to the world, that is another place of bridge building to society, because society they want truth. They want to know they want truth. They want to know that what they want, they want to put their feet on something solid, right? And so to me, these things are very, very exciting when you begin to understand that the big ideas that have been thought and talked throughout history, that are being added to by the thinkers of today and the scientists of today, and all of that conversation actually points back to God. And if you understand it and if you learn how to converse with it, you're actually going to be able to bridge that conversation back to where it comes from, and not just hide from it because it's too complicated for us. But we have the mind of Christ. Remember when I read to you from Daniel that he gave them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in all matter of literature and all the things pertaining to the society that they were in. So he didn't just give them supernatural wisdom and revelation, he allowed them to understand the knowledge of the society that they were in so that they could bring heaven to earth and bridge the gap. So that when they communicated to the people that they were talking to, they were communicating about heavenly realities in a language that was making sense to them, because they understood the culture that was around them. And that is very important for us, that we don't just become Christians who only think Christian thoughts and then we're off in our bubble and in our box, and we never move past that in order to enter into this conversation that has been happening for thousands of years in history. Questions that people have been asking, debating, reasoning, thinking, pondering, meditating, and now we get to bridge the gap because we've entered into the conversation and we've been willing to go there and think the big ideas and think through these things because we have the mind of Christ. We're not intimidated by knowledge increasing because we know where it comes from. We know who ultimate reality is. He is the intelligent first cause. Intelligent, moral first cause. That's who God is. So, all right. Let's split up into groups. And I want you to talk about, I know this is the first night that we brought up quantum physics and these things, but I just want you to talk about what your first impressions are and how that impacts you, what that means, like when as you are thinking through it. I know we just talked about it tonight, but just talk about it amongst yourselves and
Start processing.
start processing.
So